All right, Jared, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you?
Sure. I'm a big country music fan, big Luke Bryan fan. So in one of his songs, he says, "Do what you love, but call it work." For me, making sure that I enjoy what I'm doing every day, I get personal satisfaction out of it is what it's important to me and it's what keeps me motivated.
Love it. Love it. So tell us about Attitude. What does the product do? Who's it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
Sure. So we consider ourselves an ad tech monetization platform. Uh, More easily put, we like to think of ourselves as the AWS for publishers. So we work with publishers' websites, any type of content creator, whether they're game sites, news sites, celebrity sites. We run the gamut and we help them with any of their needs as it relates to monetization. So that could be with reporting, that could be with literally serving the ads, video, whatever it may be.
Okay, cool. And give us a sense of the size of the business. Where are you in terms of revenue, customers, size of team?
Yeah, we're about 50 employees. We do about 100 billion ad impressions on our platform a month, and we're in the high seven figures a year in ARR.
Cool. And I think you've raised like around 15 million for your Series A.
Yeah, we did Series A in August 2023 for 15 million.
Great. And before all the people who are bootstrapping go, oh yeah, he got the money, you actually went to the first 5 million in ARR. You bootstrapped to that point before you raised any money, right?
Correct. Yeah, we ran the business for about 4 years, completely bootstrapped. I funded the whole thing.
Cool. Awesome. So let's talk about like, your background and what were you doing? How did this idea sort of come about?
So my personal background, I've been in online publishing for almost 15 years, but before Attitude, always on the publisher side. So I worked at a publisher out in St. Louis where I met my wife. And that company, I was employee number 30. It was doing a few million a year in revenue. 2 years later, we were doing like $250 million in revenue. I was running the revenue team, and the company sold to a private equity firm for almost $1 billion. It was a whirlwind. I learned a lot very quickly, uh, as happens with many companies that eventually sell, big turnover in the leadership team. I left, went to another publisher, um, started doing the same thing, literally just helping them monetize serve ads on their website. As they expanded the business into other lines, they started raising more capital. And I think I had maybe a similar experience or motivation to a lot of founders, which was I helped two companies basically raise one sell for a lot of money. And I personally walked away with almost nothing. And so once I saw that starting to happen a second time, I made sure that, I kind of protected myself and moved on and hey, I'm going to start my own business purely to control my own destiny.
Right. So you quit your job and you started consulting.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an impromptu decision to quit my job. I did not tell my wife.
No way.
I went into work one day. 2.5 hour train from Long Island into the city. Got in early, sat down with my boss, asked for a raise. He said no. I said, cool. Spur of the moment, I quit, handed in my laptop, took the train home, called my wife and said, hey, I just quit my job. And she's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'll figure it out. So started out purely, hey, I'm just going to consult for friends that I've met in the space, a lot of companies that were spin-offs of previous companies that I had worked at. Um, and over time I'll figure out what I actually want to do in life, right? I did go to school for entrepreneurship, so I knew I always wanted to eventually start my own business, but I had no actual idea of what that business was going to be or what industry it would be in. And so I consulted by myself for about 12 months. I hired one other employee, and he helped me for another 12 months. And I just ran it purely as an hourly consulting business, send invoices monthly. This is how much I work. This is how much you owe me. And I scaled that business up.
How big did that business get?
We grew it to think around 30 clients and about 2 million in essentially net revenue a year.
Cool. Okay, so you've got about these 30 clients. Where did the idea for a SaaS business come from?
Yeah. So let me think about it. I started in early 2019. Towards the end of 2020, I had two companies out of the blue offer to buy me, right? Buy my company, right? One was a video tech vendor, and one was an actual ad exchange. And they just knew me because I was working with so many of their clients, right? And I was kind of taken aback by that because I never, at that point, I didn't think I even had a company. I'm like, hey, I'm just consulting, right? I'm like, what do you mean you want to buy my business? You mean you just want me to be an employee for you, right? And they threw out some numbers that were frankly like they were life changing numbers, and maybe hindsight's 2020. Maybe I should have taken it. I don't know, but I spoke with my wife. I called up one of my old professors from college who was working at like a senior partner at a VC firm, and kind of went through the opportunities with him. And he was basically like, hey, you're running a consultancy. Your valuation is as good as the revenue you're generating, and that's it. So you have a decision to make. You can keep going down the same path and personally make a lot of money, but you're going to be doing this forever. Or you can pivot your company into a real business, maybe SaaS, right? And grow it much quicker and try to sell the business, right? And interesting enough, he's like, I think you should do the former and I want to buy you, right? And so now I got a third offer and I was like, all right, this is getting out of control. I'm going to do the second thing. I'm going to pivot to SaaS. I have no idea what that really means. I'm going to try it out. And that's when I called up my best friend. I was like, hey, why don't you come on over, be our CTO, help me build out real products? Because up to that point, any tech that we had built, I built in a text edit file. I'm not an engineer. I built in a text edit file, and I was sending text edit files to our clients with just like raw JavaScript in it and saying like, hey, push this to your site. I don't even know what that means, but push this to your site. And so that call with that former professor, whether he realizes it or not, basically completely changed the path of my business.
So you called your best friend and said, "Come on, you can be the CTO. We're going to build this SaaS thing. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's what we're going to go and build."
Correct, but the most important thing to him, I said, was right. He had a family at the time, and it was a big risk joining a startup. I was like, hey, we're making a lot of money already. I can afford to pay your salary. What do you want? Right? And I'm like, let's do this together. I'm going to give you equity in the business. Let's try to sell this for, crap ton of money one day. Let's do it. Right? And he said, okay. so he, a few weeks later, he came, flew to my house. We sat down at my dining room table. We built the very first official version of what we call our cloud wrapper, our main product, and we started pushing it out to the market.
How did you figure out what to build? A lot of people are in this sort of position where they're running a services business and they want to get into SaaS, and they're not really quite sure what the product should do, right? Because maybe as a services business, you're providing so much to clients, and
yeah, we were doing a lot of different things. Yeah, we were helping with analytics. We were helping them with like billing. We were helping them with monetization and optimizations. It was a very, I was fortunate, but it was a very clear answer to me. Okay. I was basically Attitude was acting as a middleman between all of these publishers and several other third-party tech providers that were doing what I now do, right? And I was basically getting paid to help these other companies fix their product, right? And to me, it was basically me saying, oh, this is like the exact same scenario I had with the two former employers I had. I'm doing all this work and I'm getting nothing for it, right? I'm helping them solve these issues on behalf of my clients. Why don't I just provide that service myself, right? And so I went to one of our very first clients and said, hey, I'm going to build this out. I'm not going to charge you for it. Will you test it, right? And if you test it, I want you to move all of your tech to me. And it was kind of wild because this is actually before I hired my CTO. He gave me his engineer for free for 6 weeks. We built it together because it behooved him. If this worked, he was going to save a lot of money, right? And we built out the very first version. It crushed. It did incredibly well, and I was like, "Awesome! This is what my business is going to do." Right? At that point, I didn't change my business model, but now I was like, "Cool! This is what I'm going to focus on. This is the piece of tech." A lot of other things have come from that over the last 5 years, right? In terms of other features and products that we built out, but it was I was very fortunate that like a lot of my clients were dealing with the exact same issue with the exact same vendor. Right. I was like, cool, I'm just going to replace that vendor and do it myself.
Wait, so many founders try to get, if they're bootstrapping, they try to get customers to, if they can, fund the development. So you went further and you actually got an engineer from a customer.
Yeah. So he gave him to me for 6 weeks. And eventually, again, this was me as an individual employee, like one person company. Once it started to work, I said, hey, I want you to go tell all of your friends that are also working with this other vendor that they should switch to me. And I'm going to pay your engineer. He's going to work now for me, and he'll now support you on your stuff, but you're going to pay me for his work, and I'm going to figure all of this out. Right now, he's my employee, not yours anymore. Thinking about this now, honestly, I don't think about this as that often. It was a crazy situation, and he said, sure. So I got very lucky.
You got to have a good relationship with a client to be able to have that type of conversation.
Yeah. A lot of my early clients I had already known from previous jobs for quite a while, 5, 6, 7 years. And some of those early clients, I mean, talk about like building a services business and building up a good relationship. I'm literally in their wills. Right. So like if anything happens to their business, it goes to me, which is wild, not their family and things like that. Right. So these are people that trust me at least at the time, trusted me enough.
Are you serious?
Yeah. If something happens to me, please take care of my business and my family, which is honestly an honor, a little bit crazy. But I remember I have the very first message of a client that asked me to do that saved on my computer. It starts like, hey, this is a really weird question. But would you be willing? Right. So yeah, I built up very close relationships with these people because I was talking to them like 6, 7, 8 hours a day on Hangouts and stuff like that. Right. And a lot of them were very similar businesses. So, what worked for one, I could kind of multiply and apply to everyone else.
Yeah. And not only that, you started going on vacation with all your clients, but we'll talk about that a bit in a minute. So you built this product, this initial one, and I think you said you had about 30 clients at the time. How many of them agreed to switch to the SaaS and start paying for it?
All of them. And this is the lesson that I learned there. For another 6, 7 months, I gave the tech away for free. I still did the hourly consulting model with all of them, right? And I got to the point where these businesses, like I was hosting their websites, I was running all of their ads. They got like, just smart kind of create a sticky business model, right? But like I was as sticky as you get. Like these companies ceased to exist without me at that point. And I was like, cool, I'm switching my business model now. You're going to pay a little bit more, but this is why you should want to do that. We have real engineers now that I hired. You're no longer working with this guy that sometimes creates good code, sometimes breaks your website, right? We're going to constantly innovate, and we're going to use that money to build new features for you that you've always wanted, right? And so pretty much all of them right away agreed and just switched over. A handful said, hey, I want you to prove to me that you can make me more money to justify the increase in cost. So we did a handful of A/B tests against ourselves, right? Like my original free version of the code versus our new paid version of the code. And we had to prove that like the lift was more than the cost. But eventually we got there. So we released and pivoted to a SaaS model in November of 2020. By February of 21, everyone was converted and we were scaling up the business.
So February 21, you convert, you give it away for free, which often founders struggle with that because they're like, either obviously there's pressure to generate revenue, but and then you always hear the thing about charge for the product, the conventional wisdom. But in many ways, if you're solving the problem with the product, they already trust you, and you're not charging them for the tech. It kind of becomes a no brainer for them to start using it, even if they know down the line. I mean, they're not stupid, right? They know down the line at some point there'll be some kind of, you know, they have to pay something for the software at some point.
Right, right. And I kind of made that clear to them too, right? Like, hey, at some point, I have no idea how I'm going to charge you or what I'm going to charge you, but at some point, I'm going to charge you for this, right? Because at some point, I have to grow my business. I can't just keep growing everyone else's business and mine is, making no money. The other thing was like, I used the consultancy part of the business to fund the tech, the SaaS business, right? It was making enough money from all this ancillary stuff that I was doing for websites and these publishers um, that it could easily fund hiring 3, 4, 5 engineers, right? It could easily fund my own paycheck, any investments in tech, AWS, whatever we needed to like invest in. There's plenty of cash around to do that, which is why I was like very hesitant for a while to stop that part of the business. And even to this day, we're 5, 6 years later, I guess 6 years later, the consultancy part of our business still exists. It's no longer, 99% of the revenue. It's a smaller part, but there are still clients that from way back in the day that still pay us hourly to do all of these things for them. So they don't have to deal with it.
How long did it take you to get to the first million in ARR once you did start charging?
From a SaaS revenue perspective, this is going to sound a little bit ridiculous, maybe like 4 months. We got we were able to scale up our business to such a large size by giving it away for free that when we pivoted, it was like almost instantaneous. Oh my God, look how much money we're making, right? And so our first year of like pivoting from hourly to mostly SaaS, a little bit of hourly, we literally doubled our revenue. And so it was a very quick ramp up. But again, like our consultancy, by the time we did this, it was a legitimate business, right? Like we had enough clients where like we were one of the larger companies in our space, even though we didn't have have any tech.
Yeah, yeah. And the reality is that you wouldn't have been able to do that if you hadn't run the consulting business for a couple of years and solved their problems and built the trusts and all of that stuff, right?
And had the funding to to do this all.
Yeah, yeah. And you, as we talked about earlier, you raised money when you were at the 5 million ARR point, and you were telling me it was like that was probably when we least needed the money. Talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges you had bootstrapping. So it's great you've got this consulting revenue and you're using it to fund the SaaS development. But what was a hard part of bootstrapping this business?
I think there's two things. There's the personnel part of it, and then there's the financial future decision making. Okay. So from a personnel perspective, when we were bootstrapping, by we bootstrapping, I was bootstrapping the business, right? I owned 98% of the company. My wife owned the other 2%, right? So every dollar that the company was spending meant a dollar out of my own pocket, a dollar less that we were taking home that year. As we kept scaling up the business, the amount of money, I went from making a lot of money to making almost nothing, right? And so every decision we had to make, hey, we have to hire another employee. We need to pay for this piece of software for our developers. Hey, our AWS bill just went to $20,000 last month, whatever it may be, right? All of that was like, shit, this is money out of my own pocket, right? And so, I even as we became more and more profitable, I ran this business as if every penny matter. Like I was a nickeling and diming. I would check every bank statement every single day to review what was going on, and I questioned everything. And so there was definitely a lot of like, say, heated debates is a polite way to put it, between me and the other executives and some of our employees. I'm like, hey, why the heck do we even need to spend this money? Like, enough. Let's stop spending money. I just want to make money. All right. Um, and the second part of that is like, okay, we are profitable. Like, where are we trying to take this? Because again, at the time, if we said, all right, we're good at 5 million, we don't need to grow anymore. Let's just run the business as is. I'm sure my other employees will love to hear this now, but like that meant me and the two other executives could make a lot of money every year. We had no one that we were beholden to. We could write ourselves nice bonuses and say, hey, we have a really nice life. Let's do this for the next 10 years. Right. And so that was always a hot debate between the three of us of, should we keep doing that, or should we shoot for the moon? Right? Should we raise capital, take a little bit less now, and hope that one day we walk away with a lot of money, right? And so that was kind of the biggest like stress point, and what's the word I'm looking for? Like that's what impacted my decision the most, right? When we raised our Series A, we got the offer, I feel like in like February of 23, and I didn't close until August. And it had nothing to do with like due diligence or any of that kind of stuff. It was like I literally couldn't make up my mind that I wanted to do it.
You didn't want to let go of the equity.
Yeah, I don't want to let go. I'm like, oh, like I'm literally giving up a lot of my ownership in this business, right? I have my wife chirping in my ear as well, saying like, oh my God, like what if this doesn't work? We just gave this all up, right? Plus the business was paying for everything personally, right? That's kind of what small businesses do. Everything's a business expense. And so it was a big decision. And every June, I always host a barbecue at my house. I invite a ton of employees over. They fly out from around the country. I invite friends who are clients over, some of those friends that have written me into their wills, right? And we host this barbecue. I cook. I love to cook. And we just hang out and have a good time. And at that barbecue in 2023, I don't know if I had enough cocktails or whatever it was, but I sat down with the two other executives and I was like, guys, I think we're going to do it. I'm going to take the money. And they looked at me and they're like, let's go. Let's do it. Right. And so once I finally made up my mind, then the due diligence and that whole process of raising capital started.
You're generating 5 million ARR at the time. There's no real pressure for capital. Like you said, it was like, that was, you didn't need the money at that point.
No, I think we had 6 employees. So you can kind of do the math of like how much we were taking home. Yep.
So what was the driver that even got you reaching out to VCs?
Yeah, it's a good question. In the back of my mind, I always had this question of like, hey, how much am I worth? How much is this business worth? I'm curious. A little bit of curiosity and a little bit of like, what else am I not doing that I should be doing? What do I not know as a first-time entrepreneur that I really need to know? Right. And so when I did raise capital, this is a little bit of a bold statement to say on all of like these VC calls that I had, but to every single one of them, I said, I don't need your money. What else are you going to give me? Right. And the company that we ended up raising capital with had the best answer to that question.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because we were talking about this earlier, and you said that when people ask you about raising money, you know one of your first questions is like, are you profitable, right? Just explain that a little bit, because I completely agree with that.
So I know there's like, I've had friends that like literally, hey, I have an idea. I'm going to raise a ton of money at a crazy valuation on this idea. I'm going to give up a ton of my ownership in hopes that I can actually make a business out of this. And what happens to most of those, right? Like the traditional VC fund makes thousands of investments a year and 95% of them fail, right? You're going to end up in that bucket. To me, it was always like, hey, I want to get to a point where if I raise capital, me personally and my family, we're financially set. If something bad happens, I don't care, right? My employees are financially set, right? At that point, when we raise capital, I always said to my wife, hey, I'm not supporting us, right? I'm supporting all these other families and their children.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all, but a lot of pressure, right? I definitely felt it at the time. But I have a lot of friends, and one of my best friends right now is starting a company or started companies trying to raise capital, and it's the very first question I ask is like, "Are you profitable?" No. Well, then why are you raising capital, right? Like, why are you going to a VC firm? Why aren't you trying to take out a loan or a credit line or something to turn this business profitable? So when you do raise capital, one, you get the valuation you want. Two, you keep um, you don't dilute yourself to a point where like it's no longer worth it to you, right? And three, so you're in control of a negotiation. If you are profitable and you own it and you don't need the money, you can make whatever demands you want, right? And they may say, no, you're crazy. That's fine. You don't need the money, right? When you are struggling and you need that check, because if you don't get that, you're going to have to lay off your entire team and the company ceases to exist. They're going to beat you up on valuation. It's exactly like the show on Shark Tank, right? Like, oh, you're not profitable? Cool. Your valuation just fell 75%.
Yeah, I would say like the further you can get bootstrapping, the more revenue you can generate, the more profitable you can get, the more leverage you're going to have whenever it comes time to raise money. And you as a first-time founder, you then decide you're going to raise money. You send like these cold emails to VCs. Most people might get a reply or two. How many VCs did you email, and how many of them replied?
Yeah, I only set maybe 7 or 8 out, and all of them replied pretty much within like 24 hours. And so again, this is like as I talk to friends who are thinking about raising now, I have like a very specific strategy that I talk to them about, which is one, do your research on firms, whether they're VCs, growth equity, angel investors, whoever it is that you're trying to go after, people who have invested in companies that are related to your company, right, in your space and have made money off of that. If they've invested in a company and it's been a flop, right, in your space, they're not going to want to invest in you. They've been burned, right? So find a company that has made a productive investment in your industry. And then two, be really bold in your outreach, right? So my emails to everyone, I don't remember them exactly word for word, but it was like 4 or 5 sentences, something like, "Hi there, first time entrepreneur here, no idea what I'm doing. I've grown my business with no funding to $5 million in net revenue. Imagine what would happen if someone told me what I'm supposed to be doing."
I love it.
And yeah, and every single one responded like, "Hey, we want to talk," right? And when they heard my story of how I pivoted and I used basically a consultancy business with one line of revenue to fund building out an actual tech company, they're like, "Hey, it's really smart," right? At the time, I was like, I wasn't really thinking of it that way. I was like, "Yeah, I guess it is really smart," but it was a very bold email. I didn't send like a bland like, "Here's my pitch deck." I never sent any pitch decks, right? And frankly, when I presented to them, I maybe had like 1 or 2 slides, but it was mostly just me talking extemporaneously to them about my thoughts on the space, introducing them to some of our clients as well to talk on our behalf. Probably very different than the average like outreach that these firms experience. The other thing that I did as a small business, right, is like I didn't go after like the Sequoias and like these major companies, right, in the space that everyone wants to work with. They're cutting checks for hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't care about my little rinky dinky business at the time. I went after firms that were smaller, 30, 40 people in the company, right? They probably have $1 billion total fund across their entire network, right? And they do make these smaller investments. So I was very particular of who I reached out to. I found the right person, the person that made that previous investment in those firms, and emailed that person directly, right? And I was very like bold, but also like very blunt in my email, right? And it worked.
Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to your point about when you're looking to raise money, are you profitable? Because you could never write an email like that when you're like, "I've just built this product and I have no revenue, or I have 2 customers," or something like that. It's a completely different type of conversation that you're having. Let's apart from converting the existing clients from the consulting business to SaaS, how else did you acquire customers and grow?
Until I think like literally mid 2024. So for 5 years, we never had any marketing or any sales. It was just me. And it was all like I kind of built it in a way where like it was kind of the cool club, right? Like you only got to work with us if you knew someone that knew me, right? And so all of our business came through referrals, all of it. Whether it was an ad exchange that I became friends with that wanted to integrate with a publisher that couldn't do it, they would make the referral, or one of my existing clients would make the referral. And so for many years, I had like a policy, I don't know, like a plan with my clients that basically said for every publisher that you get, that you introduce me to that converts, you get 3 hours free. That was it. It was 3 hours free. Uh, and we had a few clients that just went nuts. And they're like, I'm going to introduce you to everyone I know so I don't have to pay for the next 6 months. And I was like, awesome. I could care less. Let's do it. Right. Um, and so I basically built this massive network of people selling attitude. And I never had to do any sales. So like deals were just kind of, lucky, but they were just like literally falling onto my plate. Um, and I was in a position where I could say, "Hey, this deal doesn't make sense. Sorry, I don't think we should work together." Or like, "Absolutely, this is what I'm going to do for you, and let's get going." The other thing that I did, I didn't mention to you before, but that I think is interesting is historically speaking, we no longer do this. But as I was building the business and I needed to fund it, everything was paid in advance. You always paid 1 month ahead of time, right? I was never sending invoices for March in April, right? On March 1st, I sent you the invoice for the entire month of March, guessing what you owed me. Any difference, positive or negative, was credited or applied to the next invoice, right? And that way, I never had like aging receipts and things like that, right? Like I literally never had a balance sheet where people owed me money. I was always ahead on everything.
Did you ever get any pushback from that? Because when you start dealing with some companies and more bureaucracy, they're like, "Oh, we have this policy on how we pay, and accounts payable does this, and so on."
Some of the larger publishers, and I'm talking about companies that every one of your listeners has probably interacted with versus some of these smaller shops, right? They definitely push back on me on that. And I basically said, if you want to work with me, that's the deal, right? I'm not willing to negotiate. And uh, I won in most cases. They're like, fine, I guess we have no choice, right? I was a little bit stubborn, but like, I'm literally not willing to negotiate with you on any of my terms. This is it. I have this contract signed with all my other clients. You got no choice. You got to sign it.
Why do you think you were able to do that? So obviously you're solving an important problem, and you have a track record, you got these clients and so on. But like, was there like a did you have much competition? Was there like other places they could go to?
Yeah, and it still is. Frankly, it still is. This is a pretty like online advertising. It's a quasi-trillion-dollar industry, right? There's a ton of companies in this space, including the behemoths like Google and Amazon, right? So why was I able to do it? And I think it was because how those people found, like those potential clients found me. It wasn't me reaching out to them and pitching them my services. It was someone that they knew that was already working with me saying, you have to use Jared, right? This was like Jared, not attitude at the time. You have to use Jared. He's made me so much money. Trust me, right? And that goes, one of your friends telling you that versus a salesman telling you that, it just goes way further, right? And so like the day I met a potential new client, I already had that trust built up with them, right? And that confidence.
Let's talk about events, because one of the things that you do is invest in events to build the business, grow the business. But when you started telling me about what that meant for you, I was like, "What?"
Okay. This is where I've done a really good job of like integrating my personal passions and interests into attitude and getting my employees to love what I love, getting my clients to love what I love, right? Um, Early on, we would sponsor events, major events by different ad exchanges and publications that like focus on throwing events for our industry, right? I would get up on stage, I'm person 7 of 25. I'd do my 5-minute spiel. They would ask me questions that weren't even pertinent to me. I would get frustrated, be like, okay, this is a waste of money, right? And so a little bit on a whim, okay, I was actually flying to an event in early 2023. And on that plane, like 25 people were going to the same event, right? And I started talking to them. I'm like, hey guys, would you want to go to Disney with me this summer? Right? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I think Attitude is going to host a golf tournament. I love golf. I love Disney World. I'm obsessed with Disney World. If everyone that knows me knows I'm obsessed. And they're like, yeah, that sounds cool, right? So I started text chain. This was March of 23. About 2 weeks later, I had 15 people signed up. I'm like, awesome. I call up Disney. I reserve a ton of hotel rooms. I rent out some golf courses, and I set all of this up. I set up dinners, steak dinners, and everything. No, it's all me, like 2 employees, and the rest clients, right? And we come back from it, and we're sending, we're posting pictures on LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff. And the feedback that we got on social was like, why wasn't I invited? I want in. Right? And tons of people who I've never even met or heard of in our industry are like, I want to be part of this. What is this? Right? And so I was like, well, my barbecues are always successful. This was successful. Maybe we should actually just double down and throw a ton of events. Right? And so now, 2024, we did what we call the Attitude Open. 5 days, 40 something people, mostly clients, 2 or 3 sponsors at Disney World. 4 rented out restaurants for dinner, 2 or 3 rounds of golf, a day in the parks, and I lead the whole thing. People follow me around. I'm obviously obsessed with Disney, so I know exactly where to go at what time and stuff like that. And so many people reached out that they want to sponsor it. And I was like, wait a second. We did this for a fraction of the cost of going to one event that one of these other companies throws. And we literally got these people in a room for 4 days in a hotel with us. Like we literally spent every waking minute with these people for it. We're gonna double down again, right? So 2025 this year, we went nuts. 50 something people, really nice hotel, tons of like this shirt that I'm wearing, tons of swag given out and everything. Most of the people that came, we don't work with yet. Major, major, major publishers. And these are the decision makers at these companies, right? These are VPs and C-level people at these companies. And we took them to Animal Kingdom and to Epcot and to 2 rounds of golf and to 4 dinners, boat cruises and all this kind of stuff. And we organized and threw it all ourselves, right? It became big enough that I actually became a travel agent on the side just to throw these events for us, right? I got my like cruise line agency number and all of that kind of stuff.
Wow. So it's funny because like you going on like the idea of going on a vacation with somebody like a vendor is like it's almost like a timeshare thing. You're like, do I really want to be stuck with them for a whole day where they're going to keep pitching me on the timeshare?
You better hope you like them.
Yeah, yeah. And so, why do you think like people who weren't even customers were coming? Was it because when you did take customers and then you're going on social and sharing this stuff and they're seeing, wait a minute, like this person from that company spent all of this time with you, plus it's fun because you're going to Disney World or whatever. Do you think it was like that sort of social proof?
Yeah, I think they felt like, hey, this looks fun. This looks cool. Why wasn't I invited? Like, what's this exclusive party that everyone gets to go to, right? Um, and so that certainly worked well, but also like people like a little bit of a break from reality, right? Like, and this is why I love Disney World specifically. Like, it's literally its own world outside of the United States. It's like you're there, you suspend disbelief. Everything is possible at Disney. And so, believe it or not, like a lot of adults really want to go there without their kids, right? And this is also, by the way, this is how I signed our very largest client. Without even meeting him, I invited him and his wife to meet me at Disney World with my wife and go on a 4-day vacation together. Thank God we liked each other. We got along. He's now one of my best friends, right? And we hang out all the time. But it works. I do this kind of stuff all the time. If someone is worth, you know, a giant chunk of money in your pocket, you better make sure that they feel, loved and heard and respected. And what better way than taking them on vacation?
And the silver lining is, even if you didn't like them, hey, you're in Disney World, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. What do we care? We're still at our favorite place on earth, so it's fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
love it. Let's talk about the transition. So you raised your Series A. You are, you're now having investors, stakeholders. There's more conversations about how to scale the company, your role, how that needs to evolve, and so on. And at that point, you were still in the weeds, right?
Right. And to some extent, I still am, but but yes.
Yeah, yeah. And many founders, when this is a baby, it's just like hard to let go. And I think, like with your case, it was maybe an extreme example of that.
Yeah. So when I raised capital, I was doing the following. I was doing all invoicing. I was doing payroll. I was making sure that we were established in each state for tax reasons, right? I was paying our taxes. I was doing most of the code releases. I was dealing with all sales, all contracts, uh, like a lot of the business, right? Like I would say 99%, but maybe 75% of the workload fell on me, right? And then my CTO is probably taking 20 of the remaining percent, and then 5% of across everyone else, right? And giving up like that responsibility, the reason it was so scary to me, and it's probably scary for any founder, is like you don't want someone to make a mistake that costs you money, right? Like, you're doing a good job. It's what's making your business money. So God forbid you relinquish certain roles or responsibilities to someone else on their team, and like you relinquish invoicing, right? And they send the wrong invoices or the wrong amounts, and you don't make as much money as you should have. Like, okay, that's literally dollars out of your pocket, right? And so it took a very long time for me to work on that. I literally paid a management trainer for almost a year. I met every single week, and I would walk through with her different scenarios that were literally happening in my, my quote unquote office, in my remote environment, in my business, with each member of my team. And she's like, even though she never met anyone else on the team, kind of knew who everyone was, right? Like, how should I handle this? What should I do here? This person is not meeting my expectations. Like, what do I do? Right. And that was super helpful. But there's been like a recurring story in my life, my work life, which is, some crazy external force happens and I have to make a major decision, right? And this is how I kind of started relinquishing some of our. Early on in my career, my boss, who actually now works at Attitude, went away on vacation and everything blew up. So I had to learn how to code, and I had to figure out how to make us money, right? And that's how my career kind of really took off. In 24, so just a little over a year ago, I went on vacation. My wife was like, "You're not working. Like, I want to actually enjoy this vacation. You're not going online." And so I met with my team a week before, and I said, "This is what you're going to do. At the end of every day, just send me an email with the updates. Let me know what's going on, just so I don't feel too far out of the loop. But you're not going to hear from me." I came back the next week. Business had grown, revenue was up, and I was like, I guess I can rely on these people, right? And that's kind of when the floodgates sort of opened. I started like relinquishing a ton of or offloading a ton of like my responsibilities, especially on like the business side, like the day-to-day operation side, to other members of my team. Some of the stuff like invoicing I still do, because I'm a little crazy about that. But it's definitely gotten to the point where like if I don't work today, we're fine, right? Unless there's an emergency, we're fine. It's a good place to be. It's a scary place to get to as like a founder-led business. But the only way to do it is to just rip the band-aid off and go for it and hope that it works out. If it doesn't, okay, you come back and you fix things and you move on.
But for people to really understand like how hard it was to make that transition, like at one point you hired a couple of people who you were going to start handing over to. And what did they do for the first 3 months?
Not much of anything, because I was like too afraid to give them any real responsibility. So I had two people on like the business side to support me, senior people, and they were probably working 1 hour a day on like menial tasks that I was handing off to them, right? And that's when the investors came in and said, like, what the heck are you doing, Jared? Like, you gotta offload something. Like, this is ridiculous. You're doing some of this stuff. You're the CEO of the company. Get someone else to do it, right? And I'm like, oh, I can't, right? Eventually I did. A few months later, they started ramping up really quickly, and now honestly, their days are out of control and way too busy, and now they have to hire people to offload some of that work too.
That's funny. All right, we should wrap up. So let's do the lightning round. I'm just going to ask you 7 quick fire questions. Okay. What's one of the best pieces of business advice you've received?
Yeah, my mother, when I was applying for my first job, said always be a revenue driver, not a cost driver. I was debating whether I should go into the marketing department of a company or the revenue department of the company. And she said, I don't even know what this is. Go in the revenue department. Trust me. And it was a very smart move.
Love it. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
I don't really have a lot of time to read books. I'm so busy. Most of the books that I read are like crazy sci-fi stuff to relieve my mind of what's actually going on in the day to day. So I probably don't have the best answer for that one.
All right. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Someone that spends the time understanding each aspect of the business, right? Like, it drives me nuts when I talk to other founders or executives at a company and they literally don't understand what their business does. If you ask me how a certain piece of code works that I've never seen before, I can go in and figure it out, right? If you ask me about how this other business that we acquired, how every little aspect of their finances is run, I know everything, right? And it's that we're like, regardless of like what the issue is, I can always chip in.
What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
I have a very specific routine. I wake up at like pretty much the exact same time every day, make my bed, take the shower, I go on my walk with my dog into town, get the exact same cup of coffee from the exact same place. Like, my day, pretty much every day for the last 5 years, has been almost exactly the same. I have very few, like, I don't have much of a variety of clothing. I don't want to spend time like thinking about what should I wear today, what should I do today. Like, I want to do the exact same thing. It might sound a little bit boring, but like, same way like we're raising our child, she has the exact same routine every day, and it helps her not be cranky and stuff like that. It helps as an adult as well.
Yeah, because we can get cranky too as well. What's a new or crazy business idea you'd love to pursue if you had the time?
Yeah, so everyone is obsessed with, or maybe it's a little calming down now, but the idea of AI, right? And like, okay, AI this, AI that. What I want to do is try to figure out how we can use whether it's like ChatGPT or one of these other tools and some machine learning to basically automate the actual innovation part of our business. We're spending so much, everyone's thinking about how you automate the day-to-day part of your business, but like, that's what makes us successful, right? And the second you start automating that or handing off a service as part of a business to a bot, like, that's where things are going to fall apart. But we have all of these ideas of things that we want to test within our products from a development perspective that we don't have the resources to do without us going out and hiring like 50 more engineers, right? But that's where AI can really help us, is like figuring out how to leverage that to build the new tech for us that then our people can service.
What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fun, but I'm a very motivated type A person with a very specific timeline. And there's a very specific reason why, and I share this with my employees. I don't share this often, but when I was young, 23, 24 years old, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is a disease that I'm lucky and fortunate enough I have it under control, but it can debilitate you and it can make you immobile, right? And when I got that diagnosis, I was in a position where like, I don't know how many years I'm going to have to be a productive worker and to support my family, right? And so like, I'm going to take advantage of every minute that I have where I can to work my butt off to make sure that my family's taken care of. So I write a letter every year to all of my staff saying like, this is why I'm pushing you so hard. This is what I'm personally trying to achieve for myself and for my family and for you guys, right? And I have a very specific motivation.
Wow. Wow. I love that. Because and in many ways, it's like when you're pushing people and they know that there's this real personal thing behind you. It's like, okay, it's not just because he's a pain in the ass and wants us to work. It's like,
Yeah, and honestly, maybe I use it to my advantage a little bit. Like, hey guys, if I am MS and I can do it, you can definitely do it, right?
and finally, I think we know the answer to this, but finally, what's one of your most important passions outside of your work?
Yeah, so definitely my wife and I love to travel. We go to Disney a lot, but we travel every year. We try to go to one place internationally. We spent a few weeks in Italy a few summers ago. That was amazing. Disney World is, I'm obsessed. Go 5 to 10 times a year.
5 to 10 times a year? Of course you do, because you're taking away your yeah.
Yeah, we're taking our customers, right? And golf. I'm obsessed with golf. I'm not nearly as good as I used to be. Played a little bit in college, but I find it very relaxing to, again, it's an escape from reality to walk the course for 4.5, 5 hours and not really think about the world around me and just be like in nature. It's very nice.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, man. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was fun. If people want to learn more about Attitude, they can go to attitude.com. That's not attitude, but AD. Attitude. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's just jared@attitude.com.
Awesome. Thanks. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you and the team the best of success.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was awesome.
My pleasure. All the best. Cheers.